Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Throughout this process of tax reform, Senate Republicans explain time and again that we're fighting for the middle class. Our opponents lobbed one attack after another, claiming we were selling hardworking families short. Of course, that's completely wrong. The tax bill we passed was written to help middle-class families from the very beginning. Our goal was to make their taxes lower, simpler, and fairer. Under our legislation, the typical family of four making the median family income can expect nearly $2,000 in tax relief next year. And just yesterday, we saw that tax reform has already inspired job creators to increase take-home pay for thousands of their employees. Yet not a single Democrat joined us to pass this tax relief for American families. What's worse, just before we voted, Senate Democrats raised a point of order that proved who is really going after low-income families. When given the chance, Senate Democrats, by the junior senator from Vermont, raised a procedural challenge to strike out a provision that protects colleges that provide students with tuition-free education. Let me say it again, Mr. President. The junior senator from Vermont raised a procedural challenge to strike out a provision that protects colleges that provide students with a tuition-free education. And they chose to do it. They chose to do it after the same provision had already passed the Senate before we went to conference. They didn't have to raise the challenge, wasn't required. They chose to. And in the process, they knowingly hurt schools that provide tuition-free education to students who can't otherwise afford to go to college. Let me give you an example. Berea College in my home state of Kentucky. They're dedicated to educating students from the Appalachian region who've limited economic resources. In other words, poor kids from Appalachia. Their students' average household income is less than $30,000 a year. These are kids from families making less than $30,000 a year from Appalachia. Their families don't have the means to pay for their education. So here's what they do at Berea. Every single student receives a scholarship which covers the cost of their tuition. Every student. So what the kids do is they work at the school and in their communities to help cover additional living expenses beyond the cost of attending school. In fact, the vast majority of Berea students are able to graduate debt-free because of the model. For example, they have a great restaurant over there. You go there and eat lunch, the kids are cooking, and they're serving. They're working their way through school, and when they graduate, they don't have any debt. Located in one of the most economically challenged areas of my state, this little school, Berea College, offers a quality education to students with the greatest financial need, and has done so since 1855. 1855. It was founded by abolitionists. In fact, as my friend in the chair knows, I'm originally from his state. Let me tell you when I first heard of Berea College. My grandmother and my grandfather had an African-American family that helped them around the house. And they had an adopted daughter. And I was a little kid, and I remember them talking about her going off to college. And I said, "Where are you going?" She said, "Going to Berea." I said, "Where's that?" "Well, it's up in Kentucky." And Mr. President, it was the closest college that would take African-American students at that time. And of course, since they didn't have the means to pay for the tuition, it was a great opportunity to get a tuition-free education. A few years back, I called up the president of Berea College and I said, I'd like to try to locate somebody. And he said, well, the privacy rules are such that all I can do is see if I can find them and see if they want to meet you. I said, fair enough. I said, this would be a person about a certain age, would have been originally from Athens, Alabama. If you can identify this student, I'd love to meet her. Well, he did, and I subsequently found out when she came into my office here in the Capitol with her daughter who lives in the area, Mr. President, that she graduated from Berea, went on to be a nurse, lived in the North most of her life, and is now relocated back to Athens, Alabama. This is Berea College. This is the college these guys over here, every single one of them, voted to target by making their endowment subject to a tax that would otherwise only apply to the really big schools in the country, the Ivy League schools. So every year, Berea uses the returns on its endowment solely for scholarships, which sets it apart from nearly every other college and university in the nation. So I worked with the Finance Committee to include a provision to protect schools like Berea from taxes on endowments that apply to private schools who choose to sit on these large funds rather than using them aggressively to reduce the cost of attending school. But Senate Democrats identified this exemption as a bridge too far. So instead of allowing the provision to stand, they protected students. Instead of allowing the provision to stand, thereby protecting these students at schools like Berea, they decided to pick partisan politics and attack the measure simply because they could. And in the process, they ensured that Berea would bear the brunt of this blatant political calculation. So because Democrats stripped part of this bill, Berea estimates it could pay a tax penalty of nearly $1 million every year. Berea's president has already explained to us the effect of this tax. The school will be forced to offer fewer scholarships to kids. Fewer scholarships. The Junior Center for Vermont and his allies, which included every single member of the Democratic Conference, have chosen to make it harder for low-income students to earn a college degree. This is especially hypocritical coming from the man who claims to support free college for all. I remember the presidential campaign last year. I'd say the occupant of the chair, I remember he was promising free college to everyone. Apparently that's free college for everyone except at Berea College, where it's already free, thanks to generations of donors who built their endowment. I'm at a loss for words. I don't understand how they can claim to fight for students in one moment and then make it harder for students to afford college the next. They choose to attack the tax bill by any means necessary, even though they knew the outcome, and in the process launched a direct attack on the ability of schools like Berea to provide tuition-free education to needy students. So, Mr. President, this action by Senate Democrats is deeply disappointing and will provide real and lasting harm. I hope my friends on the other side of the aisle realize that the American people will see their partisan tactics for what they really are, an attack on low-income students who want to pursue opportunity and find success. A number of my colleagues in Congress have said they're interested in fixing this problem, including my colleague from Kentucky, Congressman Andy Barr. I'm committed to working with him and other members of Congress and with schools like Berea to help right this wrong. It's hard not to repeat that this amendment was offered by the man who wanted to provide every student in America with free college tuition, but at the same time wanted to reduce the number of scholarships in a college where it's already free, thanks to the generosity of decades of wealthy people who gave to their endowment, believing that the mission of providing a college education for poor kids from Appalachia was a worthy goal. We're going to fix this problem, Mr. President. We're going to fix it as soon as we can.